When my family arrived in this country, they didn't know what racism was. They didn't know what racism was until they came to America.
I grew up in Queens, New York. Neighborhood was Glen Oaks, mostly white. But for some reason, I always hung out with people of other races, whether they were black, Indian, Asian. I kind of had the Rainbow Coalition of friends, as my dad used to joke around with me. But
growing up, it wasn't until I got older when I look back at my childhood, and then once I really understood what racism was, I would think back and say, wait a minute, maybe that teacher was a little bit racist. Why does she have all the black kids sit together in the back of the classroom and everyone else sit in the front?
Going to elementary school, I was one of maybe 5 black kids in the whole entire school. Occasionally the kids would chase me home. It was because of the color of my skin.
I remember playing football in the street with the white kids and a ball rolling on this neighbor's yard, and he's screaming at me, and it's like, I'll have your nigga head rolling down the street, because the ball went on his yard. I'm like, there's 5 other kids out here and you pick me out of all people, and I live on a block, we live on a corner. So I'm just like, this is crazy.
White kids used to call me nigger, and they used to call me zebra. Although I am very light, my parents are darker than I am. And in elementary school, there was one other person. Name was Debbie. Debbie was a black girl, and I remember my mother came to the classroom to pick me up, and there was one other black person in the classroom. And all the kids in the class said, Debbie, your mom is here. Meanwhile, it wasn't Debbie's mom, it was my mom, the black woman at the door.
My first real interaction with racism was when I was about 11, and my best friend at the school at the time was a little girl named Wendy. Wendy had a birthday party coming up, and she invited me, and I asked my parents, and they said, yes, you could go. And then the day before her birthday, on a Friday afternoon before we left school, Wendy came to me and she was crying, and she was like, I can't invite you to my birthday party. And I said, why? Did something happen? Are you not having your party anymore? What's the problem? And she said, it's because my parents found out that you're my best friend and you're black, and we can't have black people at my house. That was my very first experience.
16, 17 years old, didn't have an ID. Police would stop me because I looked, I fit the description. I look older than I was. And if I didn't have ID, they would run my name. I've taken 2 rides to the precinct to be identified. Detectives running through mugshots, comparing me. And I think that a lot of that was performative for them, just because. Yeah, those types of interactions I've had growing up, and not so much as I've gotten older, but younger definitely. Because black male between the ages of 17 and 25, that's the description, right?
That you don't make the mistake of forgetting your ID. And if you do, you turn around and you go get it. You don't want to be stopped anywhere. You don't want any problems where they can turn around and say that they can't identify you. So they're going to put you in holding until they can. Because that was something that was regular. It was regular for all of the guys in my neighborhood, and sometimes even the females, to get locked up. Get locked up, fingerprinted, ran through the system for nothing. I remember my brother, he had a job working for Philip Morris in the city, in a shirt and a tie, with his Philip Morris work tags around his neck. He fit the description of a robbery suspect.
I leave the house without ID. If I notice it quick enough, I'm running back upstairs to get it. You got to have your ID with you at all times, in my opinion. It's one of the most important things, because if something happens and you can't prove who you are, they could say you are whoever they want you to be at that point.
So I have when leaving my house without ID. There's plenty of times I've done it. I've been down the block, and there's times I know I have to go back and get that wallet because I need the ID. But there's times I have just kept going. I have my ID on my phone, so those times I'm not too pressed. But these days, police, they want everything. They tell you they won't even take a digital picture these days.
People, white people, looking at me and women like me and making these assumptions about our personalities before they get to know us, before we can even get a chance to open our mouths. It's the rational, it's the thought of, who should I be in front of this person before they think I'm someone else? Do they think I'm ghetto? Do they think I'm uneducated? Do they think I'm a thief? Do they think I'm coming here to cause a problem? Do they think I'm a fighter? Am I confrontational? I feel like I constantly have to be in front of white people and put on a facade of, this is who I am. You don't have to think I'm someone else. I had a situation in a restaurant that I went to, and me and my son went to lunch, and I purchased food at the restaurant. I handed the cashier my debit card, and I went to pay for my food. And after we ate lunch, I told her, I said, ma'am, you didn't give me my debit card back. And she's looking up front, and she says, I gave you your card back. I gave it back to you. Some lady comes from the back who overheard, and she approached me at the front and started telling me, she gave you your debit card back. She doesn't have your debit card. This white lady starts using her hands like this. And she's like, first of all, she gave it to you. I saw her, and you don't know what you're talking about. And me, I'm like, oh my God, the ghetto. This lady is ghetto. She assumed that I would be confrontational, so she figured she would start first. She's just going on with the ghetto. Meanwhile, the lady that took the debit card from me, she's just looking like she's looking very suspicious. And I'm looking at her like, wait a minute, you took the card, can you just give it back? So then I said, you know what, I'm a little bit surprised by your reaction towards me. Maybe I could call the police because I believe you stole my debit card. I paid you. When I said that, all of a sudden, 3.5 seconds later, oh, I'm so sorry, here's your debit card. So here these people are assuming that I'm ghetto, but meanwhile, I believe they tried to steal my debit card.
Here's a story for you. 15 years old, summertime, hanging out in the park late at night with two of my white friends. They're younger than me by 2 years. We come across two older white kids who have a beer ball. I don't know if any of you guys remember what a beer ball looks like, but it's a big old plastic ball with it's a pony keg of beer. And they're all drinking, they're offering us drinks, and I'm like, well, I don't have any money to contribute, so I'm not going to drink. And they were even like, no, don't worry about it. And I'm like, nope, I don't have any money to put in, so, and that's how we were, right? If you didn't put in, you didn't drink. And at 15, having a couple of beers in the park at night is cool, right? So police show up invariably. Two older kids get shooed away, and I guess they were old enough to buy the beer, so they were in their 20s. Two white kids that I was with, they got sent home. I was arrested. They took me to the precinct, and the whole time they're having this conversation with the guys, and they're looking at me. Their first thought, and my first thought is, I'm done. They're gonna take me, and the anxiety goes up to what's gonna happen to me when I get to the precinct. I'm worried if I got the two guys that are gonna drive me out into the park and beat me up, because that's been known to happen in our, So the rumors around the different types of racist police that were in the police department, that were in the town I'm hanging out in. So at 15 years old, your mind is going racing because, you know, really it's one of the first interactions I've ever had with police. You know, fear is real when you're in that moment because you don't know what could happen to you.
My rational fear is not really for myself. It's really for my sons, because I'm raising 3 young black boys. And even though my oldest one is biracial and he's mixed, multiracial actually, I still have that fear because even though he may look white, he's still black.
My biggest irrational fear is with my son, again, being biracial. I really truly fear for his growing up, continuing in the state of the world, you know, the way the world is right now. Coming out of a park on a Sunday morning with my son, 12 years old, he's about 5'10" and a half, so he doesn't look like, you know, he doesn't look like a kid, he looks like an adult. So here I am packing up the baseball gear, you know, I see a cop pull in. All right, he's probably just patrolling the park, you know, things happen at parks. So as soon as I pull out of the parking lot, I get pulled over. I get asked, what am I doing here? I said, I'm practicing baseball with my son who's sitting in the back. He's like, oh, that's your son? I was, you know, why is this guy in the back seat? You know, asking me stupid questions that to me were just completely ignorant. He's seen somebody that looked like a black male in a car with a white person. You know, I tell my son not to wear a hood. You know, don't wear a hood. When you walk in the stores, take your hood off. You know, I had to explain to him who Trayvon Martin was. Like, these are things that I fear just because of the color of his skin and his, you know, height and weight, that he's going to be perceived as older to begin with, and he's going to be perceived and something bad could happen. So like my biggest fear is just for my son's well-being. And you know, you could say, oh, do this and do that, but in this day and age, it doesn't matter what you do. If your hands are up, if you're handcuffed, you know, it doesn't matter anymore. Police get away with some wild stuff, and you could tell somebody to be an angel, and you know, they'll probably crucify the angel too.
Have I given my sons the talk? The younger 2, I will say a little bit. My older one, my older son, I've given him a more in-depth talk, and it was different. That even though he looks a certain way, he can be treated a certain way. I feel that my talk with my younger sons is going to be totally different because they definitely look black. It definitely, I feel like I got to have different talks with everyone based off of their skin tone because I think that affects them as well.
I've had to talk with my son about the racial tension in this country. I've had to talk with him about it because he is a black man. He's very proud of being a black man, a black American man. He's very proud of our culture and our heritage. We love being black in my family. We love being black. I mean, you know, but he kind of notices that things are different. Like, well, I'm looking at the news. Why is he getting killed? Why did that lady get shot? What was the reason? And now he's understanding that it's because they are black. When I was his age, we didn't have that. So now he's understanding that it's important for him to not just love your black heritage and being black, but just to understand that some people may not like you because you're black. Some people don't look at you as equal because you are black. I make sure that I taught him to comply with whenever he has to see a police officer, whatever they say, just do what they ask. Don't ask any questions. Just say, okay, sir, thank you, sir, or ma'am. I teach him to comply because I'm scared for his life. I fear for his life.
All right, I've been profiled, like I was saying before, you know, a lot by cops. I remember a situation when I was uptown in Harlem. A cop is behind me. At the time, I'm driving my car. It was an Audi TT. So now I'm proceeding down the block. I see the police. They're looking at me. They bust a U-turn. I know everything is legit as always. So I'm still driving normal. We get to a traffic light. They pull up next to me. I'm not paying them any mind. Traffic light turns green. We pull off. He gets behind me. He's behind me for another 2 lights. Then he hits the lights. I pull over. I already know what the situation is because my brother's a cop. He's actually a Fed. So at the time, I'm telling him, the cop comes to the car. He tells me to turn the car back on because I turned the car off. Turn the car back on. I turn the car on. My car starts up. He's going crazy. Your exhaust is illegal. Everything is illegal. What's going on with this car? Who did this to this car? And I'm like, yo, I said, you're bugging out right now. Like, what? I said, all this for the exhaust? He said, yeah. You would have thought he found a pound of coke in the car. So now I say to him, I said, listen, I said, my brother is on the job. He said, that doesn't work anymore. I'm looking for my wallet. His partner opens my passenger side door and says to me, did you just drop somebody off? Oh, because your car smells like marijuana. And I'm like, no. I was like, why did you just open my door? You had no probable cause to open my door. The next question out of his mouth is, how much does this car cost? How is this relevant to what's going on in the situation? Finally, I found my wallet. And this is a good thing that goes back to having your wallet and going and leaving. So now I have my wallet. I find it. I got the badge. I got everything. So I give him the wallet. He's like, oh, now everything is different. He wants to give me back all my stuff. He's like, oh, I'm just giving you a warning for your exhaust. I'm like, oh. I was like, this is nuts. I was so uptight because I knew it was all profiling. They were 2 rookies. And the worst part about it is when this guy gave me back all my information, he gave me his sign sheet for his sergeant. I asked cops out there, like, you know, how can I find a precinct to return this to them? No cops would tell me. And I got a cop friend, he said to me, oh, that's just like losing his gun. That's why they didn't want to tell you. I said, oh, okay. I don't know if that's how true, but it was a lot of information on there that a normal person shouldn't have hold of. So I could see what he meant by that. But that was karma for me.
That fear of just being shot for being black. Well, you know, some people would see that as an irrational fear. And I've met quite a few of them who say, who have told me they don't believe that all these killings are because police fear blackness. It's because they fear for their lives or they're protecting others. And, you know, it's hard to argue with their willful ignorance, but bottom line is that's a rational fear for me. Is if I walk out of this door in Rockville Center, a police officer decides I'm a criminal, he very well could shoot me and claim he was fearing for his life or protecting me, protecting someone else, and get away with it. It's a rational fear.
I am not blind because of the color of my skin and because I don't have the same racial profiling or some of the experience that maybe someone of darker skin, male or female. I understand it. I get it. Unlike a white person who doesn't get it at all because they're not one of us. I am not that person. Again, don't let the light skin fool you. I get it. But I can't say I have the same experiences as some of my friends and my family members because of the color of my skin. I've learned through the Black Lives Matter movement, through our current presidency, that the police officers are, I don't feel like they have shown us that they're not really there to protect us.
Previously, like maybe a few years ago, I would have just been not really thinking anything of it. I know that they have a job to do. They service our communities. But in all honesty, today, November 1st, 2020, I am absolutely scared and horrified for my life. I have to reason with myself if I get pulled over. I have to pray that I don't become another hashtag, that I don't become the citizen that gets killed and everyone has to protest for me. I pray that that's not me when I come in contact with a police officer, because it seems like the law enforcement has no type of, they have nothing for black people and people of color. They have no type of understanding, and they have no, they just don't care. I never thought that I would have to protest after seeing so many people get killed. And now it's just that spirit invoked me when I was protesting. And we do want change. I am fighting for justice. I have a whole entire family, the whole entire community, every black person in this country. We need justice. We need something. So maybe if protesting was a start, maybe it's the start. I no longer live in New York City because of the situation that happened in my home. I had this fear of basically calling the police, reaching out for help, because when I did call the police to ask for help, because I had a white neighbor shooting across my yard for many years, when I did call for help, the police kind of, they dismissed me. They kind of asked me if I was dead yet. They kind of didn't want to be bothered. They didn't want to hear it. They kind of made me out to be like someone complaining, even though I was legitimately scared that this man would, harm me and my daughter, because he was shooting across my yard. So what would stop him if I'm coming home late and his gun accidentally dislodged? Those things kind of went through my head all the time. And when the cops told me to stop calling them, I stopped calling the police for help. Right now, I don't really leave my house because this happened to me. I kind of just don't go out the way I used to. I kind of order everything online. I get my food delivered. I get everything delivered so that I don't have to drive, because that's one of my biggest fears, like driving. I have a license, but I just don't want to drive being black anymore. I don't have good feelings about police officers. A lot of them are not really interested in helping you. They're not interested in protecting you or anything like that. And what can you do? There's nothing that you can do about it. I know as a registered nurse, if they were ever to grace my workplace, I would have no choice but to help save their lives.
I have a fear of getting sick, of having to go to the doctor because of the treatment that we sometimes experience. 5 months pregnant, I just felt like I gushed like something wasn't right. So I had my sister drive me to the hospital, and I found out that my water had broken prematurely. And in order for me to be able to give my baby the best chance of survival, I would have to stay in the hospital until I was 6 months. So I had to be in the hospital for about a month. During this time, they kept telling me, oh, there's nothing wrong, your baby is fine. You just have to rest and everything will be fine. There was a doctor, the head doctor, would come in and say, this is the best chance for you and your baby. That happened to be a black doctor who at the time was the head of the maternity floor. There was a white doctor who would come in and he would say, I'm not going to mince words with you. You should just let us take your baby because the chance of your child surviving is very, very slim. So you should just let us take the baby now. And every day I would say, no, I'm going to fight for my child's life. Your doctors are telling me that if I can make it to the 6 months, they can take him and we can work from there. One day they sent a nurse in to me. She said, Miss Summersell, you need to get up and walk to the bathroom. I said, well, you need to go out and call a supervisor or call whoever you need to call because I refuse to get up out of this bed. You will have to force me to get out of this bed. So I'm fighting for my child's life. I'm fighting for my life. And some doctor wrote that I should get up and walk. The biggest mistake that I did make was listening to another doctor who came in and said, Miss Summersell, you're not sleeping. You've been up for days. You need to sleep. Let us give you something to help you sleep. I was tired. I was alone. My mom was taking care of my daughter because I was in the hospital, so she didn't want to have her up there with everything that was happening. So in my one moment of weakness, I listened to the doctor and they prescribed me Ambien. And I fell asleep, and then I just woke up to just pain. And before I fell asleep, I said, is everything okay with the baby? They came, they had the monitor on me, they checked, they said everything is fine. I fell asleep. I woke up in pain. They couldn't get a heartbeat. And I lost my child. In this day and age, this is what happens to Black women all the time. We are not heard. We can say that we're in pain. We can say that we're hurting. They just don't hear, don't listen, they don't view us the way that they need to in order to protect us and protect our children.
Sad. It's depressing. It's hurtful. Can bring tears to your eyes, some of the stuff that we're all experiencing or seeing now. I don't know how it's going to end. I don't know if it will end. This is stuff that's been going on for God knows how long, especially in this country. I don't live in fear. I can't say I really ever have. But, interesting time we're living in.
Don't shoot!